Hello and welcome to another video dust tutorial, and in this one we're going to cover the effect called Extrude. So what is Extrude? Well, it's a light and audio reactive effect with built-in wave generators, which is great for creating your own custom content. Okay, so if we start up here on the left in the user interface, we have two layers, layer 1 and layer 2. And if we start in layer 1, you have the render mode here, you drop down menu. And on the top, you have point size and line size, and these refer to which render mode you're using. For an example, if you use points, the point size will change those. And if you use any of the line modes, say lines, line strip, or line loop, the line size will change the size. Go back to try grid. And then on top of that, and depending on which render mode you have a poly button, which exposes the framework. So if we click that, and anytime you're in poly mode, you can use the line size to change the framework. And there's a smoothing function here too. And then to the right of that, you have your colors. You have your red, green, and blue, and your overall mix. Okay, so next we have various color modes. And if you look up here in the user interface, we're currently using a live camera input, which you can alter the colors in the layer RGB here. And if you click to RGB, it gives you three color palettes, red, green, and blue. And at the moment, as you can see, it's black because all our colors are at 0. So as I start to add a touch of color in, and we can turn the smooth on and off. And you can do some quite quick color gradients here. And then we have RGB. Next to that, we have a grayscale. And don't forget, you can colorize that additionally with the RGB on the layer. And so if we give it an additive blend mode, we can bring up the content. And you can do some pretty cool gradients on the top. Okay, so next we're going to get into the extrusions and the wave generators. So if we bring up our favorite cellist and bring in the effect, and we have an extrusion slider here, which I'll turn up on the iPad, and you can see what's happening. And if I just move the X and Y, bring that back, and one of the key elements with this effect is the dimensions, the X and Y dimensions here. So as you can see, if I change the X from very low 3, bring that up, and change the Y. So you can see how that's important in this effect. Bring that back. Bring the extrusion down. So this is your extrusion level, and that is directly related to, if you go over here, because we're using layer 2 at the moment, and you have the Z scale, and that you can increase that even more using the Z scale. Back to 1. If we bring this extrude down and introduce the wave generators, so as you can see, I have a mix slider here that says extrude on one end and wave on the other. So if we bring it towards the wave generator, and you have X speed and Y speed, and X shift and Y shift. So if we give this is essentially if I give it one wave on the X and one wave on the Y, and this is your overall scale for the waves. Let's bring that to say 1, and you can see what's happening because I have no speed yet. So just to show you how these generators work, if I increase the Y shift and the X shift, bring that a bit more, and increase the X speed. So as you can see, that's generating speed on the X, and if we bring up the Y, so now you have a combination. You have one wave on the X, and let's put this, just to make it simple, one wave on the Y. And you can increase these up. And then you have a 4 times button on each of these speeds. So if I bring this the maximum at 1, increase it by 4, it gets pretty mad. So if we bring those down. And then, so we currently have it in RGB mode. And if I bring in the live camera and bring this fader up in the layer, so you can see what that's at. If I turn this off and slow it down, you can see what's happening here. And I'll show you some more examples in just a bit. Okay, now let's get into the audio section. So if I bring the mix in and turn the audio on, as you can see the meter's going and the effect is responding to my voice. So let's bring some music in. And so top left we have the meter, underneath we have the solo button and the EQ here next to it. You can choose which EQ mode. And so let me solo it and I'll show you the EQ. Okay, and that's choosing which frequency to use for the effect. I'll go back to all pass. Now back over here in the audio trigger area, we have the extrude set to 4.6, and if I was to zero that, the audio is not going to affect the extrude at all because the low and high is at 0. So if I drop the low, even below 0, say, as you can see, it's going back. So if I put that at, say, negative 4.8 and increase the high, it's going to go from a negative 4.8 to a 4.0 according to the audio. Now if we go over to the wave section here, the X speed, Y speed, and the scale. Now that's related to the wave X shift and Y shift, which we covered earlier. So we have a dimension of 160 on the X, 160 on the Y. And because there's no scale at the moment, the wave generator is not engaged. So what I might do, let's just turn the extrude at 0 and give some scale to the wave generator. We've got a 1 on the X, 1 on the Y. So as you can see, the audio is kicking in the wave generator. So we have an X speed of 0.5. If we give the Y speed a bit of gump here, you can start to see what it's doing. And even if we drop the scale, the low scale on the wave, it starts doing some crazy stuff. Then we bring that back to 0. Give it some more shifts on the X and the Y. Now if we come down here, also before I get to that, there's a slider here that's a mix between the wave generator and the extrusion. So if you can mix, so if we keep in the center like we had it, we have the wave generator, and then we can add some extrude on the top of that just by bringing this low or high in. Keep it about right there. And if we move down a bit further, we have this edge setting, X and Y. So that's almost, it's basically a vignette, and you can control how much on the X and Y. Let's bring that back to 0. And then you have this attack and decay. So if we bring the attack up, you can see how the audio, bring this up a bit higher, gives a nice little release on the audio signal on the wave and the extrusions. And the attack, if we bring that up and bring the decay down, it's almost like the reverse of a decay. Keep it right there. And then we have the bloom. Let's bring that in a bit. And down here you have a fine setting. This turns on the anti-aliasing on the GPU. Not to get too technical. So if we turn that off, it just basically smooths out all the elements on the image. Okay, so we've set up a couple of presets here, and the one I'm running at the moment is using live camera and live audio, and we're using the grayscale color mode up here. So we're on, let's say, layer 2. I can just switch the colors. I can change the dimensions into something completely new. So if I go to another preset I've set up, preset 9, so this isn't using live camera, this is just using the wave generator and the RGB color mode. So if I just want to switch some quick colors here, some quick gradients, and all of a sudden it's turning into something completely different. You can use different render modes, line strip. And the next one, I have preset 10 set up here, and this one doesn't use audio. Let me kill the audio. And preset 10, so this is just using the wave generator. Once again, we're using quite a big Z scale, a 10 and a 10, so it's pushing the elements quite far back into the image. And just, you can just change some colors, modes, and you're into something completely different. And I have another one set up here. So this isn't using audio either. This is just using the wave generator. We can do things like, once again, change the render mode to lines. Put it back to line strip. And change the colors. Tune on the X and Y. And there you go. You got something completely new. So that's Extrude. All right, thank you.